As a business owner, do you ever feel like you're out of your depth trying to understand all the legal mumbo jumbo it takes to run a business? I'm not a lawyer. I just want to run my business. Or do you ever worry that your business partnerships and agreements might not hold up legally if things go south? Or do you feel like you put all your blood, sweat, and tears into your work and you don't want anyone stealing what's yours? Yeah, me too. And I've got just the person to help us with that. Hello, friends. Welcome to My Good Woman, the podcast for new and future female leaders. I'm your host, Dawn Andrews, a happily married hockey mom and the founder and CEO of Free Range Thinking Business Strategy Consulting. Grab a seat at the table with me each week for candid conversations with culture-shifting, glass-ceiling-busting, trailblazing women leading impactful enterprises. We discuss what makes them tick, how they get it all done, and actionable strategies to help you lead with confidence and grow the visibility, reach, and revenue of your business. We're classy ladies, but we don't bleep the swear words. Listener discretion is advised. You've got the passion, you've got the purpose, but do you have the proper legal structures to take your small business to the next level? Hey, my good women, it's Dawn Andrews. Running a small business is no small feat, especially when it comes to establishing credibility and legitimacy in the eyes of clients, customers, and partners. So today, we are getting legal lessons for lady bosses from expert attorney Heather Pearce Campbell. Heather is a warrior mama, nature lover, and dedicated attorney and legal coach for world-changing entrepreneurs. Based in Seattle, she is the mom to two wild little munchkins and the founder of Pierce Law PLLC, which is the home for her legal practice. She's also the creator of the legal website Warrior, an online business that provides brand protection, legal education, and support to information entrepreneurs like experts, coaches, consultants, online educators, and speakers and authors around the U.S. and the world. She is an information hoarder. She loves paper and books while secretly dreaming of becoming a minimalist. And girl, I can relate. She relishes an occasional rare night out with her hubby when the kiddos are miraculously asleep and she can soak up HGTV without guilt. And she is also the host of the Guts, Grit, and Great Business podcast. With her savvy understanding of digital and small business needs, Heather is sharing hard-hitting legal advice to help you boost credibility and productivity in your business. Grab a pen and buckle up as we dive into the nitty-gritty of legal structures that provide the backbone for any successful enterprise. Heather is breaking down the prominent legal pitfalls facing entrepreneurs and equipping you with actionable strategies to tackle them head-on. So whether you're just launching your business or ready to scale to the next level, this episode will give you the legal smarts to arm your passion project for success. Let's level up legally together. I can't wait for you to meet my friend, Heather Pearce Campbell. Welcome, Heather Pearce Campbell, to My Good Woman. I'm so happy to have you here.
Excellent. I'm so happy to be here. It's always so good to see you, Dawn.
What is really fun about this, and I hope the listeners can appreciate this, is that not only do Heather and I know each other from a business mastermind, but I also would be somebody that could really use her services. So I'm standing in for everyone out there listening today, learning and asking questions and getting some legal advice along the way.
I love it. That these are actually the kind of conversations I love because it really helps the topic come alive for people. And when you're somebody who can ask questions from that perspective, you're also likely asking really relevant questions for your audience too. So it's great.
Perfect. So we're going to get to some of that. But first, tell us a little bit about you, Heather. I would love to learn more about how this business got started, where you came from, and why this.
So the funny thing is I never once, like people ask, oh, did you always know you were going to be a lawyer? I never once thought about it until I was almost ready to graduate university. It was in the final year of my finance and economics degree that I had to take a business law course as one of my business classes, and everybody else was falling asleep. And I was like front row Joe. I loved it. It was so weird. And it was one of those things that I was just like, this is very interesting. I should pay attention to this. And at the same time, I actually was taking an advanced writing course and I had to choose a final paper topic. And I actually chose legal ethics. as the topic. And so it required that I like go into the community and actually talk to attorneys and learn about their practices and explore that world. Had to do a ton of research and it just ended up clicking. I had a conversation with my mom one day and I knew I wanted more schooling and I really loved business, but I didn't want to go get an MBA. I knew that wasn't the path. I had taken so much business in my 4 years there, and law ended up just clicking. And so it's one of those things looking backwards. I look now at where I live, the intersection of law and business makes total sense, and I never could have predicted it.
I love that you share that too, because I think I counsel young people. So the children of my clients are coming to chat with me. And so many people are looking for that right destination. They're trying to choose the final end point and point themselves towards it. And it makes sense from a logical standpoint and even from a road trip standpoint. It's like we set out with a destination in mind. And I can totally appreciate the value of that way of thinking. And if I look back on my own career and I look back at every conversation I've had with somebody on this podcast so far, nobody saw themselves sitting in the chair that they're sitting in now. It was a progression of decisions. And for the most part, the women that are high achievers, that have built a beautiful business for themselves, that supports themselves, that supports their family, that gives them freedom and the opportunity to be curious and creative and do things that they love, has been because they were being curious, creative, and followed what they loved. And that's what your story reflects to me. That's so fun.
It's so true what you say. First of all, it's never a straight line getting anywhere in life. Business is certainly not a straight line. We don't often get the foresight of knowing exactly where we're landing. And so it's really about what is the right next step. And
Yeah.
sometimes that right next step is a leap. Sometimes it's building a bridge. There's no truly right answer, right? But it is really about honing in on what is the right next step for me and feeling into that so that you have a clear yes or a clear no, but don't set your expectations so far out that you think you have to know the whole map. You never will.
What is the transition between finding that path for yourself and where you are now with your business today? What happened between those 2 points?
So I graduated business school, went to law school, ended up here at UW Law, and a really pivotal thing happened, really my first quarter of law school, which is that my mom was diagnosed with glioblastoma.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, and so that was dramatic for me personally, for our family. We were a very close-knit family. I'm one of 6 kids. My mom was the glue. So that really changed life in a major way. And what it meant for me is that my first year of law school, which is here in Seattle, I spent Monday through Wednesday in class and I traveled home across the state. My folks were in Walla Walla at the time and spent time with mom that last 10 months of her life,
Mm.
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then I drove back to Seattle Sunday nights. And so I did the first portion of my law school in 3 days a week. That was just how it had to go. And I did not open a book. I did not study. I did not do anything school related Thursday through Sunday. Luckily, I had professors that worked with me. I had classmates in school who watched out for me and kept me updated on homework and all the assignments and all of that. So it worked out, but it really dramatically changed my perspective on life, on timelines, on work. Like, how do we spend this precious time that we have? What I noticed is a lot of kids came into law school with very big ideas about what they wanted to do in the world. By the end of law school, you pretty much get funneled down to you're working, for a big law firm. Maybe you go to a medium or small law firm, or it's the government. Go work for the man. And that's the path. I just always really questioned that by the time, because my mom passed away then at the very start of my second year of law school. So what felt stressful to other people in law school absolutely was not a stressor for me. I was like, whatever. I showed up with like cheese and salmon to all my exams. This is a picnic and I'm just going to write this exam and be done with it. And I did not have the capacity for any additional stress in my life because the stress was happening over here in real life. What it meant is that by the time I graduated, I'd had a very different law school experience than a lot of people. Not everybody. Plenty of people go through crisis during law school, whether it's divorce or losing somebody or whatever, but most don't. So when I graduated, and actually as I prepared to graduate, I was unwilling to sign up for somebody else's path or somebody else's version of what they thought I should be doing to gain, quote unquote. We all think, oh, we've got to go get the
If this, then
experience.
that. Yeah.
Totally. We got to do this first because that's just what people do. And I really questioned that from the very beginning. And so I ended up taking a class my third year of law school called Issues in Solo Practice. I may have been the only one. I don't know any of my classmates that ended up graduating and launching their own practice, but that's what I did. I interviewed at some of the big firms. I went through all the rigmarole and I went through some of these places that had stuffed shirts and closed doors. And I was like, no, this is not for me. I was wearing my fake snakeskin boots and like long skirt. Like I did not fit in any way into that world. And I never felt very quote unquote traditional within the law anyways. And so I ended up launching my own practice right out of school. I look back and I was like, that was crazy. Part of me is like, oh, I can't actually believe that I did that because I didn't know what I was doing.
At that time, did you see yourself as entrepreneurial, or you just knew you didn't fit in the prescribed path, so this was the other available path?
Little of both. So I was
Okay.
entrepreneurial. My dad was an entrepreneur. I grew up really inundated in the space of entrepreneurship. I got the talk when I was 5 years old. If you're going to go to college, you got to start saving your money now or be super smart or be very athletic and get scholarship. I was like, okay, check, check. I got to like try for all those things so that I have a shot. So I was a serious kid, probably a little too serious. And I did all the things. I'd saved gazillion bucks before I even went off to school and I got full scholarship. So there was a lot that worked out for me, and I'm so grateful for that. I was a believer in independence. I was a believer in creating your own path because I'd seen my dad do it. And it wasn't easy, but it's something that I just really believed in. And I think part of it, that what my mom's death did was really solidify my beliefs that we don't have time to wait around to finally make the choices that matter. We just do not
Amen.
have the time for that. And the other thing that I fully believe is that we all should be doing work in the world that lights us up. And I know that's not easy. I know that for a lot of people, a job is safe and it's what they need to do to provide for a family. And I do not poo poo that at all.
Yeah.
And if you are being tugged or called or pushed to do something and that will not go away, you need to pay attention to it.
Snapping the fingers. Totally agree. My goodness, I can't even imagine if I had met you during those law school years, what a journey that was. So now that you've got your own practice, so I'm timelining it, right? You've got your own practice. Was the online business space a space that you already saw when you started your own practice? Is it something that you transitioned into as a specialty? Like, how did that part go?
Yeah, transitioned into it. I always did business and I always was interested in business. It was not exclusively online business. What ended up happening is I worked with a lot of small businesses. I also did real estate. I did a fair amount of land use. There was a mix that I worked in initially for, I would say, the first decade of my career. Lots of litigation, I did some construction dispute work, which was massively interesting, highly educational, really helped me learn the ropes from a procedural, litigation, discovery perspective. It's also employment law. So there was a really good mix, but generally it was business. Even employment is related to like the way that we do business. And a lot of the folks in business had real estate issues or vice versa. And so there was a heavy mix of those worlds that really started before I was a decade in because I always had a unique approach to the way that I even did law. But I just thought there's so much about our legal system that is not working for people. And as an outsider, because I had my own practice and even the firms that I worked with on some of their really large projects, I was independent. I got hired to lead teams because cases were so big, they needed like a massive discovery effort or a major review of historical records related to some major real estate transaction. So there was really interesting projects that helped me with my legal chops. But along the way, I was like, this is so inefficient. So much of what we're doing, and especially when it comes to small businesses in the real estate world, it's inefficient. It's very expensive, even though our legal system is quote unquote the best in the world when it comes to protecting individual rights, giving people the benefit of the doubt. It still does not work for a vast majority of people. And so what I found myself doing was really trending towards how do I do this in my own way? How do I do this in a way that is more efficient, that really beats a system from the standpoint of the benefits that people get and the support that they get and avoid a lot of the pitfalls?
So, what did that look like when it was connected to business owners? If you're working with them, what was the unique approach? And then how did that look in real life for a business owner?
So for me, I ended up intersecting, and partly the way business has trended is more and more heavily into the online and digital space. Information businesses have exploded. And I ended up working with a lot of people in the consulting, education, learning, personal growth space.
Actually, let's pause for a second, Heather. I want to make sure for anybody that's Heather and I sometimes I feel like we might be a little bit behind the wall. So I want to share with people when we're talking about the online business space, these are the experts, creators, course creators that are sending you emails that you get in your inbox to I recently just signed up for Workshop Week, which I think was really interesting. It's an online collaborative of artists and makers, and they have put together a week of each of these different disciplines, like a potter or a painter or a knitter or whatever. They've put together this week of ongoing workshops. So every single day for 5 days, somebody is teaching a new class, like a beginner orientation class on how to do this creative thing. And so that's a collection of online business owners and course creators that are doing what they do, reaching out and sending the emails to your inbox. And I'm sure every listener out there has signed up for the free gift, the lead magnet, the some get this white paper, something from someone online that they have appreciated. So when Heather and I are talking about the online business space, that's a version of the online business space.
Totally. Exactly. And I love that explanation. It tends to be more non traditional in that these businesses are not required, for example, to have a brick and mortar presence, the way that they deliver their services. Many of them do. Let's be clear. Many of the online business owners that I serve do also have an in person component to their work, whether it's delivering live workshops face to face, retreats, events, consulting. Many of them are consulting one on one with clients on site. So there usually is a mix, but so many of their primary services or information can be delivered online, and they have a heavy online component to their business.
So did you see that coming, Heather? Is this another curiosity moment for you where you saw a wave of this approach to doing business coming and you were like, I'm okay. I want to get into that. That's interesting. Is that what happened for you or?
So I definitely saw it coming. And because I knew so many people in that space, they naturally came to me with questions. And so I just ended up starting to become a resource where I realized this is only going to grow. More people are going to venture online. And particularly because in my work, even in the traditional legal world, I worked with a lot of professionals. You hire consultants and experts to come onto the team for certain things. And professionals are moving online, where so many of them used to be able to live exclusively in the brick and mortar world, whether they're health professionals, whether they're some other professional. It's so interesting. One of my clients recently is an architect that specializes in how to build and create outdoor children's spaces. And so she's taking that information and knowledge to the masses. You don't have to work with an architect, like brain dump parents, people that work with children, like here's how you do it better from a design perspective. So you can get as niched basically as you want in the information world, which massively opens up all these opportunities for people to take their expertise online and reach new heights because they have access to a major audience that, you know, you even think about the difference between 2023 online and 2010.
So I've been in business 22 years.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we were just like baby children starting our businesses. But I was thinking about at that time, Zoom did not yet exist. There were no online course platforms.
Facebook didn't exist.
Facebook didn't exist. I feel like I'm a little bit like, back in my day, we used to trudge through the soda. But
Oh my gosh. I tell the story of the first time I accidentally moved an icon on my computer, on a computer desktop. It wasn't mine, it was my brother's. I freaked out. I didn't know what I'd done. Like I thought I'd broken something.
what I'm fascinated by, and I think it's so great that you saw the spark of this and got waded into this space early on, because the opportunity for incredibly smart, gifted, and even average, normal people with great stuff to share. Now there are so many tools and opportunities to be able to do that with relative ease and to build an audience that can generate an income for you. But this is why, okay, stop the presses because this is why I had Heather on today. Because with every new development, new tool, new opportunity for sharing, new way to interact with your audience, the minutia of legal challenges that start to happen are I feel like it's infinite. I feel like it's I feel like it's gremlins. It's like you pour water on one and then you've got like a bazillion more of them. I just was thinking about it. So for those of you out there that maybe you have a website, so there's a lot of stuff around the world of disability that's happening right now. And then there are also new requirements for privacy protections, cookies, like things that just because you chose exactly, just because you chose to put up a web page for your business, there's a whole world that you probably don't know needs to go with having that properly up and operating if you intend to use it to engage and collect emails from other people and build an audience.
Totally. Any kind of commerce. So it's so interesting. That is such a great illustrative point. I get people that are like, I just have a landing page. It's not even really a full website. Okay, let's get this straight. You've got a landing page. Does it collect emails? Yes. Does it distribute information? Yes. Are you selling something? Oh, yes. You're doing all the functions of a website on one page. You're publishing information, distributing information, you're collecting data. You have all the requirements that apply to a website from the perspective of what your legal needs are. And so that's the other thing is so many people, and I joke, how many 15-year-old boys in their mom's basement can throw up a website overnight and be in business, have literally no idea what they're doing. And it is like driving down the freeway at 75 miles an hour. You're presumed to know the speed limit wherever you are on the roads. And just because you don't doesn't mean you're not responsible for those. You can be held accountable to every law that applies to your business. And so how many of us are just like that 15-year-old boy that literally knows nothing about the law?
Yeah, we're literally on the loose on the internet.
Yes.
We're menaces on the loose on the internet.
Basically. But here's the good news is it's actually not that hard to get your head around. It is a limited universe. What Don and I were talking about before going live is that the hardest part for most people is, I love your analogy of the gremlins. I called it Pandora's box. They think they're going to open Pandora's box. Like it just keeps coming. There's no end to their legal needs. It's a known universe. And for these types of businesses, even if you're not exclusively in the online space, still a limited universe of what you need to know about your business to run it effectively from a legal perspective. So my job, and I think the thing that really sets me apart from the marketplace is I set out to deliver so much of that education and information first, because what I hate about the legal market, that I should say the traditional legal market, is that it's a very high barrier to entry. And for small businesses, that doesn't work. It's very ineffective. And so most people don't even get out of the gates when it comes to being able to elevate their own level of thinking and strategy around legal decisions because they're excluded from the marketplace.
It's perfect timing. Like a question that I had for you is you're providing advice, but you're also a legal coach. You have courses, you have information to be able to share with people, and then you have your actual legal services. What strategies do you employ that can help female business owners, female entrepreneurs build their confidence in their legal knowledge and their decision-making abilities, especially in that small business space? Because if you're a corporation and you can retain a general counsel, fantastic. Somebody's there to pick up the pieces and do all the legal work. But especially for a woman starting a business, and not being able yet to know how to see around those corners, or even they don't know what they don't know. What do you do to help them build that confidence and build their knowledge?
Couple things. My primary goals in actually creating the Legal Website Warrior, which is a second business to my legal practice. So I have my traditional legal practice, and then I literally created an alternative legal service provider model that competes with the traditional legal marketplace intentionally. Like I did it very intentionally to make this information easy and accessible and limited. You only got to learn what you got to learn so that you just make better decisions. You don't have to go to law school. It is not going to take you 5 years. People have all these ideas about what it takes. The benefit of being an entrepreneur in the first place is most of us have a pretty decent amount of grit. We are willing to roll up our sleeves, put a little elbow grease into learning marketing as it applies to our business, learning sales as it applies to our particular business, learning information systems and business models as they apply to our particular business. Same is true of legal. You just have to put it in the bucket of some things that you can learn a bit about. You don't have to learn everything, but you have to learn enough that you can issue spot and you know when to get yourself help. And then the other thing that I do is try to make myself really readily available. And a lot of attorneys don't do this so much, which is to consult on the options in the marketplace. So I often really think of myself as a legal concierge. Okay, what's your budget? Let's look at your business. What are your priorities? I can help you figure out how to meet your most important priorities first. And then we can talk about how do you timeline these other things or how do you prioritize these other things, but just know that they're there, know that they're coming. Don't stress out about them. Just have a plan in place for dealing with it.
Hey, my good woman, a quick break in the podcast action. If you already know that launching a business is on your horizon, we've got a special gift for you. If you want to figure out if you've got what it takes to be a trailblazing entrepreneur, take our fun, insightful quiz to discover your entrepreneurial style. Discover whether you're a born boss or a mindful maven and get tailored advice to guide you on your journey. Click the link in the show notes or head over to donandrews.com/bizquiz to get started. Take the quiz now because your next leap might just be a quiz away. So I'm particularly excited at this moment in time for women who have been in corporate and are just ready, like they've had the sparkle. They know that they have thought to themselves many times, I'm ready to leave. I want to start my own thing. I want to bet on myself. I want this freedom. What are some of the missing moments, the don't know moments from a legal perspective that you see for women when they're just starting out in their businesses?
First, I would say is mindset. And if they're leaving the corporate world, let's be clear, because I work with a lot of those folks too. And I
Yeah.
love them because so many of them, by the time they're making that leap out of corporate, it's because they're really pursuing what's in their heart. They are making a decision that feels clear and that's exciting, even if it causes some nerves, whatevs. Big life changes do that. But they're often really committed to the success of their next thing. And so, first of all, it makes them more primed to learn all the right things and to do them in the right order. But one is don't undervalue yourself. Don't be like, oh, because I'm a small business or I'm just doing some consulting or I'm doing this side thing from home. Don't minimize it. Understand that the business marketplace in the United States, 99.9% of all businesses are small businesses. And those are businesses that make less than $3 million a year. We are, from the numbers perspective, we are the marketplace. Small businesses have been responsible for creating 2 out of 3 jobs in the economy over the last 2 decades.
So we've made that choice. I'm a woman. I'm putting myself in her shoes, right?
Totally.
I'm in it. I'm on it. I'm doing it.
Yep.
What are my legal road bumps speed
Totally.
bumps I need to be looking out for?
First thing is, and this is where a lot of people misstep, is even in the earliest days, starting to collaborate a little too soon. Meaning if they're truly going out on their own, great. They've got some ideas, they've got concepts, they're pursuing them. That's awesome. But some people get into the I'm going to do this with a friend or a partner or a potential collaborator who's in the same space. And you can create what is called an accidental partnership just by sitting down, exchanging ideas, mapping out a potential business strategy, putting down some ideas for IP. You can create joint IP by doing that. And what often happens,
And this is just by having a chit chat with your friend that you're kind of borrowing some courage from as you start your business.
totally, or borrowing ideas from, or they borrow ideas from you. So it goes all the ways. And what happens generally in these scenarios is there's going to be a doer and there's going to be a not doer. And the doer is going to move forward and start to utilize some of the ideas or put things in motion. And the not doer is going to feel some possession around, wait, that was a joint idea. That was my idea. Now they've taken it or whatever. So just understand, even in the earliest of days, and I know it feels formal, but if you're doing business, and you're in it to win it, meaning you want to do it the right way and set yourself up for success, it's about clarity. Use a non disclosure agreement. Treat your concepts, your IP, your ideas, your pathway as very precious because it is. So that's the number one thing, even before people get to corporate formation or creating an LLC. Let's pretend they're going to start their own consultancy or their own creative firm or whatever. Could be any kind of model, but make sure you're treating your pathway as precious. And that just means getting a little bit of help. Like I've got forms on my website. I've tried to make it so easy and accessible for people to do this the right way. And just be really clear about what is the purpose of the meeting and make sure that whatever ideas you come into it with, you're able to leave with still as your own.
Yeah, I appreciate that you have those resources available because I remember what it was like deciding to leave corporate, not deciding, I was asked to leave corporate,
Also, gift from the universe. Thank you, universe.
nudging me in the right direction. So I was asked, I was laid off and knew that I wanted to start my own thing. And there, again, there's what you don't know, and so much road ahead of you in building it. And it wouldn't have even occurred to me to do any of those things from a legal perspective. Like the legal perspective was, if it was even on my radar, it was the lowest point on my radar. What I'm taking away from what you're sharing with me is that if you move it up the ladder, put it first, or even in the top 3, you automatically start to take yourself more seriously. And in taking yourself more seriously, you take a different set of steps as you continue to build your business. It's not just a let's toy with this idea or it's a hobby that I'm trying to turn into a business. You've decided I have made a step on the committed path to building something. And even in the simplest form, I've decided this is going to be a thing.
Yes. Yes. Total goosebumps right now, by the way, because you're speaking my language. It is the difference between committing and making bold commitment versus toying around with it or trying to slip into it sideways. What do men do? Let's just pretend for a minute. They're not beating around the bush most times when they're moving forward with full force into an idea. And it's not like we need to be like men. We can do this in our feminine selves, but we need to be as protective about our pathway as men are about theirs. And from a mindset perspective, by the way, one of the biggest things that I teach on is incorporation and taking that step to put that legal structure around your business, because that's the next thing we talk about. And why it matters so much is exactly what you've just said. From a mindset perspective, it's the difference between dipping your toe in the water and being like, boom, this is it. I'm doing it.
Do you find that comes into your work as a legal coach, that you're coaching not only on the strategic and or tactical specifics of you need this sort of agreement, you need these terms and conditions, you need check, 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 but this is a way you might think about it from a mindset perspective?
It comes up with incorporation. It comes up with pricing. I coach people around strategy for pricing, around how to think about pricing, around how to price things to incentivize certain behaviors, around how to structure programs, around how to craft a refund policy the right way so that you're working with the right clients. All of this stuff has to do with mindset, about how we feel about our business and about communicating the right thing to exactly the right clients.
I love it. Another question that I had was around this idea of collaboration and partnerships. As to me, the fastest way to grow your business is to work in collaboration or partnership with people. When I say partnership, especially in the online space, I want to be clear that doesn't mean that you have become married to that person in perpetuity in your business, but it may be that, for example, you and I, we share similar clientele and we have complementary services. So maybe we might decide to create a program together or to do an event together. And that would be a partnership opportunity for people, like for 2 creators to be able to share audiences and grow. How do female entrepreneurs protect those interests and establish mutually beneficial agreements when they're starting into business partnerships? Because I'm thinking about that example we were talking about earlier. And when you're leaving something, women naturally, I think, want to grab onto lock elbows with somebody for a little more support and a little more validation. So, what does it take to establish those kinds of agreements when you're getting into business partnerships?
It's such a great point. And I want to distinguish first on this point between the difference between somebody feeling like I need support to be able to do well or to be able to do this on my own. So That's very different than you and I, have the potential to really create something amazing together. And if you're needing the first type of support, go get a business coach. Go get somebody who is not invested in your business or going to try to take any control or claim ownership of IP or any limit your risk, understand really clearly what your needs are. Cause that's one of the other things actually I care a lot about and that I teach on is we get to choose the experts or collaborators or partners that we bring into our life. And it's our job to know what they're there for. It's our job, not to let other people dictate that for us, because you're going to move into a space that's full of experts that are going to have lots of opinions about what you should and should not be doing. And you have to be able to decipher who are the ones that are for you, that are really the right fit based on knowing your own self and your own needs so well. So that's first. Understand which type of support is it that you're looking for.
Do you need a business coach or do you need a business partner?
Yes, very different things. And if you're looking for a partner, do you need a short-term collaborator to help you test out and experiment with an idea, kind of road test it? Or are you really looking for a long-term business partner because you just know that's the way you work best? Again, two very different scenarios. So one of those might result in an actual legal partnership. The other could be a short-term joint venture. And so from a joint venture perspective, you've got like legal joint ventures where you're actually creating a new legal entity together as its own separate entity in the legal world, is taxed separate, like all the things. Or you might do what a lot of folks in this space do, which is do a short-term collaboration, like launch a course together, test out some short-term thing together. You want to do that under a contract, a contractual joint venture. And I've actually got a template like that on my site. But the most important piece of that is actually the joint venture preparation guide, which is a whole process that I walk people through on how do you create a collaboration or a partnership that's more likely to succeed to begin with. How do you make sure you're working with the right people? How are you having the right conversation so that you know you've got the right people? How are you asking the right questions so that in the event that something comes up, and it inevitably will, by the way, in every scenario, it will, you have spoken enough with this person about the right issues that you know you have a pathway for resolving that and still being successful together. And what happens most of the time is people jump in so quickly together. It's a little bit like dating, like, well, let's do this thing. You haven't really sat down to flesh out, oh, what happens is if one of us gets sick or like diagnosed with adrenal fatigue and just can't do the thing. Life happens. That might be a different outcome. You might feel differently about that in the context of a collaboration than if somebody just gets really bored with the project and walks away. Different ways that you might treat how you unwind that scenario. So it's really about being very creative and open, even in the early phase, about what are we looking for? How do we see our roles? Doesn't take a lot, but it takes a few conversations where you're having the right conversation to really set yourself up for success. Truthfully, that's even more important than the contract. Yes, the contract is there so that you have
Then the documentation to support it. Yeah.
Yes, that you have clarity. But I tell people all day long, a well-written contract won't save you from the wrong relationship. It really is about having that clarity, knowing what your desired outcome is, being really clear on your roles and what you each bring to the table, and being really upfront about that. Hey, my strengths are not living in the details. My strengths are strategy and team building. Oh, great. I love details. Put it out there so that you really have the opportunity to create the most successful thing that you can create.
I want to shift gears for a second. Since we're two business women talking business, how do you get it all done? I've seen over the time that we've known each other, I've seen your business grow and expand. Mine has grown and expanded. And I am always interested in that peek behind the curtain of like, how is this woman who is showing up so powerfully, delivering so many great resources and giving so much to her community of people? How is that happening? How does that get done? What stands you up every day and keeps you going?
Obviously, one is I love my work and I love my clients. And so this gets back to the pre-journey thing of like really moving into and shifting into work you love. I feel really fortunate that I live in the world of work that I love. and that I get to serve clients who I really love. Every time I'm on a Zoom face to face with a client, every time I get to meet one in person or go to live events with them, it just is so fun. I really just have the feeling of, oh my gosh, I love that I get to spend time with these fabulous humans. So that's gift number one. Number two is, and I'm just going to say it, it's not easy and I haven't always done it gracefully. I'm a mom. I feel like we barely survived COVID. You know, you and I were talking, like I launched my podcast right at the start of COVID. I joke, my friend Paul Zelizer, who I love, who's been on my podcast a few times, and he's just an amazing human. He's, oh, you had a COVID baby and it was a podcast. And I was like, totally. That's exactly right. And luckily, I set that up from the very beginning in a very systemized way. I did not want my COVID baby podcast to stress me out. And so certain things just run on systems. So I'm a systems thinker. I'm a systems person. Even the way that I run my practice and truthfully, the entire way the Legal Website Warrior business is built is systems, frameworks, systems, processes, right? It's all automation on the back end from the standpoint of documentation, delivery, education, but systems will help you, systems will save you, and still not always graceful. One of the huge lessons of my life is that there are seasons, and some seasons are a lull. And some seasons are a flow. Some seasons feel a little bit more like a push. The challenge for my personality is accepting that. It's a learning process, but also just being okay with it. Like, oh, I know that something really interesting is coming next. And that's the other thing I've always tried to focus on is what is that right next thing? So at the start of COVID, it was my podcast. That was the right next thing for me because I was just putting structure around something I already loved doing. I already was doing, having interesting conversations all the time with people about business. And then probably midway through COVID, so end of 2021, I launched my Catalyst Club program, which is a very high-end, really supportive program for clients that are in like 1 to 3 million in revenue range per year. So they've really got an established thing. They've probably grown a small team. They're either scaling or preparing to quickly scale, and they need eyeballs on.
They're moving out of that small business, 1 to 3 million topper into what would be considered a small, medium-sized business.
And they've never put legal eyeballs on all the things. They need somebody to do an assessment, to help them buckle up their IP, to build out their legal foundation. So it's a really great program. It's all the things I do for other clients in various ways. I just structured it differently, blew open my business in a way that made it feel so much more fun, created longevity with clients.
And underneath that is the systems, though, because that's what's holding this whole rocket ship together as you launch up into the next level. Yeah.
Yes, the systems and the processes, it's entirely based on a system that I was already doing. I just hadn't called it like a program name and structured it in quite that way. So that was the right next thing. And it turned out to be awesome. And it's something that I love delivering and has been such a fabulous fit for those clients. Like I said, it's not always graceful, but I tend to like accept the season that I'm in. Some are really fabulous and fun, and some are more like, okay, let's just wait and see. And that's business, that's life, that's motherhood, that's personal growth. It's all of it.
Okay. Curiosity. What's in your tech stack? What are your favorite tools? What kinds of apps, programs, software, things that you use on the regular related to these systems? What's the glue that's holding this system of systems together?
Oh, such a good question. This one might surprise some people. It surprised me. Evernote.
Oh, girl, I could rhapsodize like crazy about that. It is my brain on the outside of my head.
This is it. Evernote is one of those apps. How many people do you know that have actually had Evernote on their phone forever and they've never really understood how to use it? That was me for years. Oh, I have this thing called Evernote. I've heard amazing things about it. Aside from 5 notes at the time, I never really understood how to use it. I went through a training that my friend Charles Bird had put together. Blew my mind. There was a Facebook question a friend asked on the internet the other day that was, what do you collect? What are you a collector of? Oh, people and information. So obvious. But for me, the information part, a little bit of a problem. It's books, it's paper. Like my brain wants to take and store anything that could be helpful for anybody at any point in time.
Yep, you're always looking at the next resource.
Needs to be able to catalog it. I have very good retrieval naturally, but I have been unwilling to let go of paper things in my life that are amazing resources until Evernote. And then I went like a mad woman through all my papers, files, scanned everything. It lives in Evernote. And you can retrieve any of it in 5 seconds on your phone.
By tiny words. Yep.
Yes, if you do the right way in the right system and you understand how to utilize it, oh my gosh, changed my paper life, which was problematic, changed even my digital brain life. So that's one. I think definitely whatever your system is, get a system. If you're like me and you needed something, just check out Evernote. On the back end of my business, there's lots. Google Calendar, obviously tons of email happening in my business. I use Infusionsoft for my CRM. And that was something people have very mixed feelings about that. But when I made the decision way before I needed Infusionsoft, by the way, to get into Infusionsoft, first of all, it cost twice it does now. It's insane. This was back in 2015, but I knew I wanted to build the kind of business that needed to rely on a software like Infusionsoft. I am a big believer in investing in tools that will not force you to keep switching tools.
To move on to the next one because it no longer supports that.
Yes, I was not interested in that path. And I'd heard so many people and clients have nightmare stories trying to do that. So choose the right tool. It really makes a difference. Do your research and do the best that you can at choosing a tool that gives you lots of room to grow. So that's my other tip. Lots of Google Drive, Trello, I love. My whole business systems or everything organized on Trello. My assistants have access to all of it. There's so much. If you're a visual person, like mine is so pretty. The colors, the pictures, I love getting into my Trello. It's so fun. And even if you go to my website, you'll see that it's very much a combination of my loves, nature, adventure, outdoors with business, which is how I feel about business, is it's a big adventure and it's how I want people to feel. And so Trello looks the same way. Lots of adventure photos in there. As a mom, I'm just going to be honest, audiobooks. So with sleep, I found an app that I love called Rise Sleep. And all it does is it tracks your sleep deficit. Let's pretend you're like most people and you have your phone until 11 at night when you put it to the side of the bed or turn it off or whatever you do. So it tracks your sleep and your wake. And then not through a watch, but like when you pick up the phone. So let's pretend you're like me and it's 4 o'clock and you're not sleeping and you pick it up like, what time is it? Boom, it logs that app as a wakeful moment. So it's just enough information that you can see. And then you can adjust when you wake up. Let's pretend you woke up at 4, looked at the phone, and you didn't go to sleep until 6 a.m. You can actually log that and it will track your sleep deficit. And what I noticed over time, like the first month of using it, I very quickly shortened down that sleep deficit and improved certain sleeping habits. And I don't know even how it happened. Yeah, it's just like, it's this very interesting thing.
It was just enough to be helpful as opposed to be dangerous.
Yes, without stressing me out. Totally. And it's a really great way to check in. Oh, should I go to bed at 10 tonight or should I watch my favorite show till 10:30 or 11? Obviously, we know the answer, but there's something about seeing that sleep deficit go down and then stay within a range. It's a little bit like looking at your finances or digging into like how you're actually using your time schedule or whatever. It's a bit like that, but just enough to be helpful and not too much so that it's overwhelming. There are others, but I will say the audio functions like Audible, the sleep app, Evernote for sure, top of the list from the standpoint of being able to manage information and then just really effectively using a calendar, block scheduling.
So you have, I know, so many resources. So tell us a little bit about where we can find you personally, selfishly, since I got you here. I'm really interested in the legal website warrior piece of your life and what's there for women that are thinking about starting a business, have just started a business, have been in business for a while, but maybe you haven't reached that 3 million threshold where you're moving into a whole next tier. But I know you have so many helpful tools for people in that first part of their journey.
Totally. If you're in the 0 to 1 million and you're really anywhere in there, first of all, I've got all of my resources. I've basically think of it like building an entire database and library of document templates, trainings, guides, resources, right? All the things that the businesses in the space that I serve need
Yep.
to build their business effectively from a legal standpoint. And so you can get the whole library. That's the Ultimate Legal Toolkit. Or you can chunk it down into, there's 4 different bundles that make up that toolkit, or chunk it down from there and go to my individual template store where you can get most of that in individual form. So I want it to be very accessible to meet people where they are in their journey. If they want to get a bundle because they know they're growing into that area and they're going to need more of those resources, great. You're going to save tons of money and it'll be great value for you.
Girl, I'm like, yes, run into the store right now. Where do I find it?
So go to legalwebsitewarrior.com. There's tons of resources there. There's tons of free resources there too. So my blog, you guys, there's so many articles on there that will help you if you're in the space of exploring, what do I need? What does it look like? How do I do business planning effectively? That kind of stuff. I also have a free, if I can mention this little resource that I love, because it teaches the framework I otherwise would have taught in a conversation like this, that I walk people through so that they have a way to think about in a very simple way where their legal needs fit. So check out my Legal Basics Bootcamp. There's an option right at the top of the site, or you can go to legalwebsitewarrior.com/Legal Basics Bootcamp. It's a little mini course. It's called a bootcamp, but you don't have to go do any exercise, but you will learn a lot about how to think about your business from a legal perspective, and it'll come with a little downloadable notes page. It's super easy. And then you've got your map. You've got a little legal map that you can start to dig into, and I will point you in the direction of different resources. So I highly recommend that. I've had lots of people do that multiple times. Because the first time you go through it, like I said, total, it might be a 25-minute course, but it's delivered over 5 days. You may be ready to do one thing. And then the next time you go through it, you might be ready to do the next, right? So use it as a resource. Think of it almost like in the place of a consultation with an attorney like myself. That'd be like, here's what you need. Here's how you approach your business. So that's a resource that I love.
Thank you for that. Okay, everybody. It'll be in the show notes. Go grab it, because I know if you are out there and you are like me when I was just getting started in the early days of my business, I was not thinking about anything from a legal perspective. It's overwhelming to leave your corporate job and to start something new. And this is not the first thing on your list. In fact, it's the thing that probably feels the most scary and overwhelming, or just out of your reach. So now we've solved it for you. It's solved. You don't have to worry.
Take a breath. And honestly, you guys, it's not that hard. This is what I love about the way that I do my work, is people come away going, oh, I got this. Okay. And yeah, totally. So that's how I want you to feel. And it really, you don't have to chew the whole thing all at once. Like, it's one step at a time. You can stair step these needs into your business.
I love it. Heather, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to have you back so that we can unpack things even further, because I have so many more questions. And plus, it's just fun to hang out with you.
I love it. It is so fun. And speaking of that, people should hop over. I'm going to put a plug in for Dawn's episode on Guts, Grit, and Great Business, which is my podcast. You can also find it at my website. And yours will be coming out here shortly, but hop over there because we have lots of fun at Guts, Grit, and Great Business.
It. Yeah, we had a good chat that day too. We'll put that in the show notes as well.
Right.
Well, again soon, my friend. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining me this week. To view the complete show notes and all the links mentioned in today's episode, visit mygoodwoman.com. And before you go, make sure you follow or subscribe to the podcast so you can receive fresh episodes when they drop. And if you're enjoying My Good Woman, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Reviews are one of the major ways that Apple ranks their pods, so even though it takes only a few seconds, it really does make a difference and helps our show grow. This episode was produced by me and Julissa Ramirez. Thank you again for joining me, Dawn Andrews, in this episode of My Good Woman.